Mhm. You'd think I'd know how to do this by now. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for waiting. Hello and welcome. This is the session regarding academic life, and today we have a very special guest for you. I hope that you are ready to have some questions answered. Many of you submitted your questions prior to today's session, and so we'll try to prioritize those first, and then we will go ahead and take any additional questions that are happening. You'll notice that we have a chat box that is available to you. The messages will only come to myself and Dean Snyder. And so because of that, if you have any questions while we are discussing things, I'll be monitoring the chat, and Dean Snyder will concentrate on making sure that all of your questions are answered. So we do have a beginning structure that we'd like to start off with. And hopefully we'll start to target all of the questions that you were asking when you registered and some extra information. Today's session is really a personal point of view for you to understand sort of where the deans over at the Center for Student Advising, like where they're coming from, but particularly you'll gain all of the knowledge that Dean Snyder has regarding his own experiences, because he does have quite an extensive history with Columbia University and can relate to a lot of the different things that you're going to be going through as a new student at Columbia. So without further ado, I will go ahead and ask Justin. So how are you and how are things going?
All is well. Nice to see you, Allison, and nice to see everybody else. Should we, I don't know how these things work, but should we not have that opening slide anymore now? I don't know. I just feel like it's hard for people to see.
Oh, sure. I can stop sharing that just so that we can focus
Also,
on you. Does
it's
that
just,
work?
yeah, it's just weird for me also to look always at a photo of myself.
One of those intimidating things. You could be used to it by now, Justin.
It's like hearing your own voice, right? It's a terrible experience. Anyway, welcome to everybody, the class of 2025. This is a session geared toward international students and academics at Columbia, but we understand international could mean you're American and you grew up mostly abroad. It could mean you have multiple citizenships. If you're lucky enough to, I've always been jealous of people who have that. I am only American, and I was always sad about that fact. I grew up in California, but desperately wanted to leave the United States to study elsewhere, and I was not able to make that happen until I was in college. I wanted to go in high school, and my parents did not want to let me go. I did get to go in high school to Russia, though, in the early 1990s, and that was a very formative experience soon after the Soviet Union collapsed. So anyway, I think it's all wonderful and great that you are coming to Columbia to study. And if the United States is not where you were born or grew up, or if English is not your first or your best language, I think it's all the more impressive that you go to another country and possibly study in another language. Because having done that in other countries myself, I know it's not easy. Studying at Columbia is not easy to begin with, and when it's not your first language, it's even harder. And yet, you're going to be just fine. So today we're going to talk about academics, and hopefully I can address the questions you have, but if you have more questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Center for Student Advising. That's where I'm an assistant dean, and I've been there for 10 years. I've been at Columbia for 13 years, teaching also university writing. So what does my office do? Each of you will be assigned what we call an advising dean or an academic advisor. And those names should be going out in the next day, possibly on Monday if you don't find out today. But you will be assigned an academic advisor. And in many cases, you'll have that same person as your advisor for all 4 years of study at Columbia. Sometimes you get a different academic advisor from my office partway through your studies. That's in particular for engineers. If you declare something that's pretty different probably from what you had indicated on your application you might study, then we often reassign people to a different advisor. Or of course, it's possible some people don't stay at Columbia forever. So, you might get a new academic advisor or dean along the way. You can also request a change of academic advisor if you feel like the fit is not really working. But I would say that isn't something you should think about right away. First you should try and connect with and have a good relationship with your assigned advisor. So the first and most important thing I think people in my office, academic advisors, do is help you know what you need to do to graduate on time. Everybody is expected to graduate in 4 years or 8 semesters. If you're a transfer student, it might be fewer than that. You might only have 3 years or 6 semesters, or sometimes even 2 years or 4 semesters. But if you're starting straight out of high school and you're coming to Columbia this fall, you would have 8 semesters, 4 years to graduate. And so my office focuses first and foremost on helping you understand degree requirements. What do you need to do for your major and for the core requirements to make sure that you graduate on time? And part of that is, what do you have to do by the time you graduate? So if you're in the college, for instance, you need to do the swim test. If you're in the engineering school, you do not. Both schools have physical education requirements. Those are things people often don't think about because they're not, academic in nature like your regular classes, but they are degree requirements. So those are things, you can't ignore. It might not be a priority in your first semester or first year, but you still need to do it in order to graduate. So my office will also help you discover your passions, figure out direction. What do you want to study? What do you want to major in? If you're in the college, you could major in things or you could concentrate, or we also even have something called a special concentration, but it depends on the subject and the department on which of those options are available. For instance, some of you might want to go to medical school later, and we have a designation that we call pre-med, but it's not a specific thing that's on your transcript. It's really just a set of classes you need to take in order to be ready to go to medical school. In the engineering school, there are majors and there are minors, and everybody has to have a major in the engineering school. Nobody has to have a minor, but about a quarter of students usually complete a minor in the engineering school. And then the main other thing I would say my office does is help people know about resources on campus and connect with other offices, partner offices. We work with a lot of different offices that specialize in things that might be of relevance or importance to you. For instance, if you want to talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, we can help make that happen. There's an entire office for that called CPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. Similarly, if you want to talk about a career and finding a job, doing an internship while you're in school, or getting a full-time job once you graduate, there's the Center for Career Education. And we would refer you to them, but we're also happy to talk more broadly about, different kinds of internships. And in my case anyway, I'm quite happy to look at cover letters and resumes and give you feedback on those. In my office, I will say people come from different backgrounds. My background is in English and German originally, but I went on to study political science and education and journalism. And people in my office sometimes have studied environmental biology. They might have studied history, so whether they're comfortable doing certain things like reading cover letters or resumes and giving you advice, that's up to the individual advisor. But at the end of the day, we would always say, the Center for Career Education, who are the experts on that. I'm also quite happy to help people think through graduate school and work on applications for graduate school. But again, whether your own advisor is, able to help you with that, it might depend, and it might depend also on their background. I mean, I've worked with students recently who were applying for PhD programs in chemical engineering and computer science and chemistry, things that I have never studied. But I know what a strong application to graduate school is going to look like, and it is pretty similar regardless of the program to which you're applying. So I feel comfortable helping people with that, although I would always still refer them to their own home department as a great source of advice for the application as well. So let's talk now a little bit about what might be different at Columbia versus the schools you have previously attended. And, some of this is going to be different whether you're American or not, or whether you've studied in American or international schools before, or whether you studied in a local school and maybe in a language other than English. I think a lot of this, requires some adjusting or getting used to things that could well be different from your previous experiences. First, grading. What is grading like at Columbia? Is there a curve? Some of you might have had curves in classes previously. When it comes to curves anyway, the answer is it's up to individual professors. Some classes have curves, some don't. I've always found it a little bit bizarre that Columbia students seem to assume a curve is always going to help them. That might be your previous experience, especially in, say, math or science classes, where, if your physics class was like mine in high school, if you got 50%, it was considered pretty good, and that might translate to an A. I've heard that occasionally happens at Columbia too, depending on the class and the professor. But curves can also work against you, right? Like if everybody is doing really well, say 95% and above, the professor might decide, it takes a 96 to get an A in my class. I've occasionally heard that. But anyway, more broadly about grading, each individual professor has discretion about how to grade. It's fairly standard that 90% and above would be an A, 80% to 89.5% might be a B, 70%, 79.5 might be a C. But there's pluses and minuses. Some professors use them, some don't. I, for instance, have never given an A+ in my career at Columbia. I know some professors give them for people who get a 98%, thinking, well, that's kind of like an 88% for which I would give a B+, but it's one level above, so I'll give an A+. So it really depends on the individual instructor. I don't give A+ just because in the university writing class that I teach, I've never seen any work that I think is that worthy of an A+. I think I see work that's worthy of an A, but to me, an A+ in that kind of class would mean, what are you even doing in college? You should just go write for the New Yorker. I have nothing to teach you, basically. But I know other professors do routinely give out A+. But some departments and some professors have policies of not. For instance, ELAC, the East Asian Languages and Cultures Department, at least when it comes to language classes, as far as I know, they don't give A+. They just don't think that that's necessary or merited. So, in some classes, an A might be the top grade. But, depending on the system you come from, you might think getting a C or a D is normal. I can tell you in the United States, that's not normal. If I think about the German system, I studied abroad in Germany and then later in graduate school in Austria. They grade on a 1 to 5 system, where 1 basically is the highest and 5 is the worst. But 3s and 4s are incredibly common. In fact, normal. And 1s are very rare. And so if you think about that as an A to F translation, people would be getting 3s and 4s, which would translate to C's and D's all the time, and it wouldn't even be alarming. At Columbia, and I think at most US universities, if you're getting C's and D's, that should be somewhat alarming. I think most people are going to generally be getting A's and B's, assuming you show up to class, you do the work, you put in effort, you make a good faith effort to do well. But that's not to say you can assume that, by default, you get A's and B's. I think in most classes, you're going to have to put in good effort to get that, but it should not be beyond reach. Another thing that might be different is office hours. I feel like in most high schools around the world, this is not a common thing, at least in the formal way that it is at a US university or college. But office hours are basically times that a professor sets aside each week to talk to students, usually one-on-one, but it could sometimes be in small group settings. In Germany, this would be called Sprechstunde, and there would be one of them. Most professors might hold a literal one office hour, a single office hour per week, and you either make that time or you don't. In the US, I think it's quite common that office hours are plural and that people have multiple hours per week, and it would be usually advertised on the syllabus when they are, and maybe on the professor's website if they have a website, and often on the office door of the professor. So if you're not sure when are office hours for a professor, I would say check the syllabus. And then it might be for a professor you're not even taking a class with. Maybe you don't have the syllabus for the class. You could look online, look on the department website, see if they have their own website. But you can also just show up to their office, and a lot of professors will post their office hours on their office door to tell you when they're going to be available. And those are things where you can just go and talk to the professor. Often it's it's a good opportunity to ask questions about things you don't understand from class. If you have an upcoming essay or project or assignment that you want help with, you can ask that in office hours. Okay, I think Allison has a question. Yes. Oh, you're muted, Allison.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. So there are a couple of questions coming into the chat, and I was just explaining that if the questions are super personal to a particular person, then we'll just connect with them later. But if it's applicable to the general topic and to everyone, then I'll definitely make sure we do that. One question was asked specifically about international relations as a concentration, but in general, is it possible to graduate with only one concentration?
Okay, so I realize we have students from both the college and the engineering school probably as part of today's webinar. So the answer to that, partly depends on what school you're in. So if you're a student in Columbia College, to graduate, you must complete at least one major or one concentration. So if you want to complete a concentration and that's it, fine. And in the college, the maximum is actually 2 programs of study. So you could do a double major, you could do one major and one concentration, or you could also have a special concentration as one of your 2 programs, but you have to have at least one major or one concentration. Now, international affairs or international policy or international politics, that would fall under the political science department. And so you would either major or concentrate in political science. And within the field of political science, generally speaking, there are 4 recognized subfields, one of which would be considered international politics. And so you could focus on that if you wanted, but it would be part of a major or a concentration in political science. At Columbia, if you're a major or a concentrator in political science, you need to have 2 subfields in which you specialize. So the subfields are American politics, comparative politics, international politics, and political theory. So you would take courses in at least 2 out of those 4 fields. In the engineering school, you have one major. There's really not an option to double major. I say that I've seen it maybe 2 people in the past 10 years. So in my mind, that's pretty much 0. The bulletin makes it sound like it's possible. I'm here to tell you it's pretty much not. And that's fine. I mean, you get a major and you're going to be perfectly employable and competitive for jobs. or graduate school. But sometimes people do minors in the engineering school, although minors are not required. And in fact, 75 to 80% of students do not actually complete a minor in the engineering school. If you talk to first years or sophomores, every single person is going to do a minor, but then life happens and they usually don't get it done. Allison.
Sorry, Justin.
That's
So
okay.
there's maybe if you could describe the difference between concentration major, if there is one, and a minor.
Yeah. So again, in college, you have majors, concentrations, and special concentrations. And a major is the largest of the three in the terms of number of classes you have to do. And so it would lead to the most comprehensive study of that particular field. I would not say you're going to be an expert in that subject after having done a major. You probably want to go to graduate school, maybe do a PhD before you would really consider yourself an expert in that field. But it's what the faculty feel is enough to claim some expertise in that area, in that subject. So, to give you examples, in most departments, a major might be about 30 credits or 10 classes. And to graduate in the college, you need 124 credits. So it's about a quarter of what you're doing. In the engineering school, you need 128 credits to graduate. So the engineers have to do 4 points more or 4 credits more. We use points and credits interchangeably than college students. But there are some majors that are more like 60 credits, and it's closer to half of what you might do. So it varies by department and major. So some of the majors are very large, like biochemistry or even chemistry. There's so many requirements, biology as well. It's partly because you're not just studying, say, biology. To be a bio major, you also have to do some chemistry, some physics, you have to do math, and you have to do labs in a lot of subjects as well. So it's not only biology coursework that you're doing to be a biology major. But the standard major is about 30 credits. And if you're doing a concentration, it will often be more like 21 or 22 credits, and it might be 7 classes rather than 10. So a concentration is similar to a major, but it's typically 2, 3, or 4 classes fewer than what you would have to do if you were majoring in something. And then a special concentration, like I said before, it's not enough to graduate from Columbia College, but it's kind of like dipping your toe in a field. And we have these in a handful of departments or subjects, often in which you can't actually major. So for instance, business management is an example. Columbia College, as a liberal arts institution, does not really believe in having business be the chief focus of your study. If you want that, frankly, you probably should have gone to Wharton at UPenn. But we don't have a business major, but we do have a special concentration, and this would allow you to take 5 focused classes on business and get a special concentration. So you're still going to have to do a major or a concentration in addition to that. In the engineering school, a major is going to take up probably about half of what you're doing. And a minor in engineering is usually 5, sometimes 6 or 7 classes. But the vast majority of students in engineering don't actually complete a minor, as I mentioned before. And that's mostly just because there's not much time to do it. Minors are more feasible in the engineering school depending on your major, if there's a lot of overlap with your major. So if you're majoring in IEOR, Industrial Engineering and Operations Research, it's pretty easy to do an economics minor in the sense that you're already doing a lot of the required economics courses for the econ minor if you're an IEOR major to begin with. But a lot of times, like say you want to do an English minor in the engineering school and you're a chemical engineering major, there's pretty much no overlap. There are some non-tech elective requirements that every engineer needs to fulfill. And so I would say, you should strategically take things that fulfill your non-tech elective requirements while also working for an English minor. And that's something you can talk to your advisor about. A lot of students want to think ahead and plan all 4 years out at the outset. And I think that's great, but you should also be open to the idea that you're going to change your mind. It's very common for students to change their mind. You enter Columbia thinking, I'm going to major in X and Y. And I can tell you more than half of students are going to study something different than what they thought at the outset. Allison. Oh, you're on mute.
Once again. I just wanted to call attention that we're at the sort of halfway point at 9:30, and I was wondering if you had any other things that you wanted to mention regarding what things might be different.
Yeah. So last thing on that front is just talking to professors, communicating with professors how to address them. I think, this is not easy depending on the country, but also on the individual. So I always think it's safest to go with the most formal address possible until and unless they tell you something else. That's just the most polite, safest option. So, I would tell students you can call me Justin. I don't need to be called Dean Snyder or Professor Snyder. It doesn't bother me if people call me Justin. Sometimes people call me Mr. Snyder. That sounds a little bit weird. I used to be a high school teacher, so people would call me Mr. Snyder. So it's not totally out of the blue, but I have some students who will call me Dean Snyder all 4 years at Columbia. Others will start calling me Justin from day one. I think it's safest to go with the most formal address. So for a professor, I'd probably say professor. You can sometimes say doctor instead. Not everyone actually is necessarily going to have a doctorate. I don't have one. I have 6 master's degrees, but I don't have a PhD or a JD or an MD. Sometimes people get bogged down on, exactly what degrees people have. I know in some countries like Germany and Austria, again, titles are incredibly important. In fact, they become officially part of your name. They even end up in your passport. And you make a reservation at a restaurant and you would actually say Dr. whatever when you're making the reservation. And I find that somewhat odd, but in Germany and Austria, it's very important. And it would be considered very rude if you left out someone's titles. So I think, probably go with professor or dean if you're talking to people until and unless they say, you can call me something else. Sometimes you can figure that out based on how they sign their emails. But I think it's a little bit dangerous to just write to people with their first name, as if you are of the same age or in the same position. I think if you do that with your peers, that's probably fine. But with your professors or advisors or other people at Columbia, you should probably at least start out more formal unless they tell you that you can be less formal. And with email in particular, I think it's better to be formal and say dear. Some people just write hi or hey and they don't even put the name, and that can often elicit a bad reaction from the recipient who's like, is this even meant to go to me? So I would usually write a formal salutation, a greeting, dear Professor so and so. I have a quick story about my own experience with that. When I was a graduate student at the University of Chicago, I wrote hey to a professor. This was in the late 1990s. I wrote, hey, Professor Mueller. I still remember her name because it was such an awkward, horrible experience. I thought hey was sufficiently formal. Email at that point had only been around for 5, 6, 7 years. She did not take to that at all. She wrote me a nasty reply and basically said, I'm not a horse. Why are you addressing me with the word hey? As you might surmise, I did not end up taking a class with her. That was the point of my email, was I was asking about her class. But after that experience, I was like, whoa, okay, she doesn't sound friendly. But I think, it made me realize like how you address people is important. Some people take offense at that. Some people don't care and don't notice, but I think it's dangerous to just make assumptions. So stick to formality, I think. And formality also means not only do you have a greeting at the start, but that you sign off at the end, sign your name, maybe sincerely, maybe best wishes, maybe warm regards, but, have some kind of sign off at the end where you say something and then sign your name. I mean, it could be just your first name. It could be, I think on the first time, it's good to put your first and your last name. So those are the things I would like to highlight about how studying in the US and at Columbia might be a bit different. Next, I want to move on to just some pro tips, things that you might benefit from doing that you may or may not think of on your own, but I think these are helpful bits of advice for students. So the first thing would be ask for help. Ask for help early and often. I know this is not something that a lot of students want to do, whether you're American or from another country. A lot of people think asking for help is a sign of weakness. But I think what you'll hear continuously from people in my office and from your instructors is that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, that it's a sign of strength. And it's important to ask for help because, we don't know always when people are struggling. We don't know when people need help. And this is, how you find things out, right? Talk to us. When it comes to advising, you're really only required to meet with us once in your 4 years, and that's at the very start. Over the next month or month and a half, you'll meet with your advisor. Any meeting after that is really up to you. But in most of our email signatures, you'll find a link to a page where you can make appointments with us. And I would encourage you to meet with your advisor a couple times a semester and ask for help. Ask for, what resources are out there when I'm not sure where to go or I'm struggling with this. And look at that as the sign, a sign of what people do who actually are high performers, is they don't just hide in their room and stay silent and hope everything works out. They proactively make their needs known and ask for support. And they don't feel bad about it. I mean, that's what my office is there for. I'm there to help you, but I'm not a mind reader. I don't always know when you need help unless you tell me. Sometimes I know because your professors might reach out to me and tell me that you're not showing up to class or doing the work. But you have to keep in mind that's also more likely in small classes where a professor will notice and say something. But in a 100 or 150 person class, your professor might not notice that you're not there. And I think it's unfortunate if you use that as a way to say, okay, well, who cares if I go? They won't even notice if I'm not there. I would encourage you to go to every class, to go to every recitation, to go to office hours, and to think about this as things for which you're paying. And so just like you wouldn't go to the grocery store, pay for your groceries, but then just leave them there, you would take them home with you, right? So make use of us, make use of the different offices at Columbia. What else? So academic integrity. I think there's been a session already this week. I think you have a pre-arrival tutorial that you need to complete on academic integrity. Academic integrity is, basically completing work of your own with proper citation and, crediting the people who should be credited, whether it's a paper you're writing and citing your sources, or whether it's a project you worked with other people on and your professor has told you you need to specify who you worked with on the paper or on the project. That's important. And I will say that Columbia takes academic integrity very seriously. And there are lots of cases every year for people failing to cite things, for not citing properly. And so when in doubt, ask your professor how to do it properly. Talk to your advisor. Talk to Victoria Mullaney Brown. She's the director of academic integrity at Columbia. Work with someone in the library. Go to a library session where you learn how to use Zotero, which is an extension you can download for your browser that will help you learn how to do citations properly for your essays. So in university writing, which is the only class that every single Columbia College and engineering student will take, you should learn a bit about citation, but you're also expected to know some of that already. And I know it's intimidating and people don't always know. And so your professor for university writing can be a good resource for that. Make it known to your instructor that you're not quite sure how to do citations. And there are different citation styles. Different departments or subjects expect you to use a different citation style. So you should begin to become familiar with that, but there are resources out there to help you. Like I said, your instructor, the library will do sessions often on how to cite things, but ask, don't just guess and hope you get it right. Because if you don't cite certain things, you can sometimes find yourself having an academic integrity case. And, every single time a student has one of those, in my experience, they wish they didn't. They wish they had done something differently to avoid it. And related to that, I think a lot of cases of, say, plagiarism happen when people are working late at night before something's due and they're overwhelmed. And rather than having sought out help from the professor or the advisor, at 1 or 2 a.m., they're making bad decisions about how am I going to get this done before the morning when it has to be submitted. And the temptation to go online and cut and paste some things might be pretty great. Ideally, you would have asked for help at least the evening before when people were probably still awake aside from you. But I would encourage you to ask for help ahead of time. Like in you writing, if you're not going to make a deadline and you know it, talk to the instructor, give them a heads up, even a week or more. I have some students who know at the outset of the semester, maybe they're a varsity athlete, maybe they are observant of a certain religion, and they know at the very beginning, this paper that's due on, November 19th, that's going to be a problem for me. Okay, it's better if you let the instructor know in September or even November 12th, a week before. But if you're writing to them at midnight on November 18th, a couple hours before the paper is due, there's going to be limited options for what they can say or how they can help you. A lot of times, if you give them a heads up, they might be flexible. We're not entirely unreasonable people. We understand that life happens and people have competing demands and obligations. But it's always a better look if you've asked ahead of time rather than at the last minute. So again, speak up, ask for help. Sometimes the answer is, sorry, I can't be flexible. That's the deadline. It's the same deadline for everybody. But a lot of times instructors are willing to be more flexible because they understand the particular situation a student might be facing. But again, that tends to work better when you give them some lead time.
And Justin, that's one of those, I think we were going to talk about it later, but that's one of those things where the syllabus can be handy.
Yeah. So let's talk about syllabi, the plural for syllabus. You can't say syllabuses, but I think most people would say syllabi. So most classes, I wouldn't say all, but probably most classes will have a syllabus. And, it's important to become familiar with the concept. Maybe you had some in high school that had a syllabus. But a syllabus is something often that the professor will give out on day one of the class or the semester. And it's also something you can often find on Courseworks, which is a place where professors store and share documents. But the syllabus is kind of an overview of the semester, what you can expect to learn in the class, what the professor expects of you, how you're going to be graded, how you're going to submit your work. Some people want you to submit everything electronically. Other people want you to do it in hard copy. So a syllabus might be 2, 3, 4 pages. It might be 10, 15, 20 pages. It kind of varies. In my own syllabus, I don't specify what we're going to do in every class at the start of the semester, partly because it's somewhat organic and it might change based on the speed at which we're moving. But other instructors might actually specify every single class period, what you're going to be going over at the start of the semester. They already know it's not going to change really. And they'll also have every single reading listed at the start of the semester, and that'll be on the syllabus. And so it's important to become familiar with syllabi. I think it's always good to read them. In fact, the first homework I ask people to do in you writing is to read the syllabus and to come to the second class with questions about it. But a syllabus will often tell you how you're going to be graded, how things are weighted, how much each assignment counts towards the final grade, whether participation counts. In a lot of classes, it's just expected that you show up and participate, and there's not a separate grade for that, but it's expected and it's important that you do it. And a syllabus will often tell you if there are required readings, where to find those readings. If there's a book or more than one book you're expected to buy, or if not buy, try and check out at the library, or if it's on reserve at the library. Often a professor will put books on reserve. And what that means is you can't check them out indefinitely yourself, but you can go to the library and borrow them for a certain number of hours. And that's because the professor wants those books available to everybody in the class. So you kind of have to share them and you can check them out for a certain number of hours. But routinely for the library, if a book is not restricted like that, you could check it out for the entire semester. And so an alternative to buying books is checking them out. But you can also find cheap books sometimes online, half.com, which I think is now owned by eBay. Amazon.com, of course, has new books, but often they also have used books you can buy, or books for rent. That's increasingly common. I think Barnes and Noble also does that. But whether there are books or readings, you should be able to see that on the syllabus. And readings often might be electronic and available on Courseworks at no cost, as a PDF or Word document that you could download. Okay, so let's switch now to resources. We've talked about some before, but some other resources. First of all, many of you probably already saw this and you've even written to me. I think I have about 20 emails in my inbox. There are international sections of university writing that are open to people who would like some extra support. And all you need to do if you're interested in those is email me. And my email is just justin.snyder@columbia.edu. I'm trying to get names of interested people by Monday, August 2nd, so that we can figure out which of the 3 sections you'll be in. I try and mix it up so we have some college and engineering students in each, so that we have people from different countries in each of those 3 sections. But if you don't take university writing in the fall, then you'll take it in the spring. Everybody takes it in their first year. And so that is a extra source of support for international students when it comes to writing. But I would like to highlight that, it's not going to be an easier version of university writing. The grading and the expectations are the same. It's really just whether the instructor might do a bit more of a focus on sentence level things, or, citations. Also, when I teach that class, I try and not make very many assumptions about what people might know or might not know. Whether it comes to American culture or politics, things like that. But related to that, the Writing Center is also a great resource. And the Writing Center is something you can make use of for any class, and it doesn't even have to be for a class. If you want help with a cover letter, or an essay you're writing for a fellowship, or a job, or graduate school, you can go to the Writing Center. And the Writing Center is open not just Monday to Friday, but also on the weekends. And you can make appointments in advance, which I highly recommend, or you can just show up and be a walk-in. But I will say, as the semester progresses, being a walk-in, things get very busy and you have to wait usually. So it's good if you can make an appointment online. And there is an option for international students to ask for some individual one-on-one help from the Writing Center at the start of the semester. And I don't remember exactly how many sessions they do. I think it might be 4 or 6, but they will set you up with a once a week meeting with the same Writing Center consultant over basically half the semester. And I encourage you to do that in the semester you take university writing, if possible. But it's something you need to try and set up early if you want to make use of it, because often they run out of space once we're partway into the semester. So if that interests you, I would go to the Writing Center in the first week of the semester and try and set up this recurring appointment that they offer to international students. Okay, so I'm seeing a chat. Do I advise students to take EU writing for international students, even though you come from an American high school in a foreign country? If so, why, and what's the major difference? The way I like to describe this is, so first, whether you want to take international or not is really up to you. I mean, I think the best way to think about it is who you would be most comfortable with as your peers in the class. I think it's actually a pretty nice and welcoming environment if everybody in the class is international. And, often if English is not the first language of everybody in the class. That said, I've had even a student from Hawaii who wanted to take an international section, and I said, sure, okay, we had space, and he was in my class. And I think he felt more comfortable or at home in that class. And, so I would encourage you to think about it as who you would be interested in having as your peers. I'm a bit biased here, having lived abroad for most of my 20s, but I find international people more interesting in many respects than Americans. So I think it's kind of nice to have a class with, say, 14 students, which is the cap of a university writing class, where there are people from 10 or 12 countries rather than 1 or 2 countries. I think it's just more interesting, leads to more diverse perspectives. And so I do think, though, like I said, that there would be maybe, you might feel more comfortable asking certain things, like even how to do paragraphing. I think a lot of American students have been trained to write a very certain type of essay. To be honest, it's not always the type of essay that's going to work well in college. It's the type of essay that you would have done well in for standardized tests, AP exams, SAT, IB. But a standard 5-paragraph essay with an introduction and a conclusion and 3 body paragraphs. But how long should paragraphs be? I mean, once you get to college and you start writing papers that are 10, 15, 20 pages long, the 5-paragraph essay format is probably not going to suffice anymore. So yeah, I think it's really a question of who you would be most comfortable with as your peers. Would you like to be in a setting where you feel more able or willing to speak up because other people also might not be native speakers of English? That might be more comfortable for some people. Okay, other resources. In my office, the Center for Student Advising, we have some tutoring available for free. And the subjects, are usually introductory classes. So for instance, physics, calculus, chemistry, computer science, economics. We have free tutoring available for that. It's usually one tutor who is a peer, so often a junior or senior who has taken that class and done well in it, and then 1 or 2 students who are getting tutored. So we often call it small group tutoring because it might be 2 people getting tutored by this one tutor rather than one-on-one. But it's free and it's a great resource that you could take advantage of, and you would just talk to your academic advisor to get set up for that. Now, we don't have it in core classes like university writing or literature humanities. And the reason for that is because we think your instructor really should be functioning as essentially your tutor. Go to their office hours, make use of them. For every essay you write in university writing, you should be doing drafts. You're not just writing one version of it the night before it's due and submitting it and hoping you do well. You're writing drafts and you're getting feedback on the drafts along the way. So for you writing in Lit Hum, I would say make use of your instructor and make use of the writing center. But for chemistry, calc, physics, comp sci, econ, my office has tutoring available. So that's one resource. We also have something called peer academic skills consultants. These are juniors and seniors who've been trained to help students figure out not necessarily content of specific subjects, but how to study, how to take notes, how to be organized, how to manage your time, how to take on a really long project like say a 25-page paper that is due at the end of the semester, but it's September and you're not quite sure how to start, right? So we have students who are trained to help you with that, and you can meet with them like you would meet with a tutor, and you make an appointment through our office for that. My office also offers a resource of helping people who want to study together find each other. So for the past year or 2, we've been just having kind of a matching thing where if you're interested in studying with someone who's also taking the introductory comp sci course, we can try and set you up together and help you find each other. Okay, here is a question I see that Allison put in the chat for me. How common or possible is it to take, quote, fun classes or classes in other fields if you have more than one major or a major in a concentration? And is it manageable even if you're also active in a club, you're a leader or an athlete? So on that front, I would say, 60% of Columbia College students complete one program of study. So one major or one concentration, 60%, 3 out of 5. That is more than half, right? Now, I will say when I talk to first years, even a lot of sophomores, everybody's going to do 2 programs. Absolutely. That's just the mindset or the mentality. But as you go further in your studies, a lot of people scale back and say, 1 is fine. Why am I trying to do 2? Mostly because they do want to have time to take fun classes or to take other stuff. So I think it's fine to start out thinking you're going to do 2 programs, a major and a concentration or a double major, but be open to the idea that, you know what? Okay, I was doing econ to satisfy my parents, but I've taken 3 econ classes and I'm just not really feeling it. It's a slog. It's tedious. I'm not in love with this. And to be honest, when you're not in love with the subject, it's often a grind. It's often harder. And so they decide, okay, I'm not going to keep doing this. The econ concentration is 34 credits. That's a lot. That's more than a lot of majors. So I always point out to students, it was not a total loss or worthless endeavor to have taken 3 econ classes. Taking something and finding out that you don't want to take more of it is very useful information. It's great. You learned you don't want to do more of that. I learned I didn't want to go into medicine by volunteering in a hospital for 4 years. I did that in high school. I was in the emergency room my final year. My brother became a paramedic, but I saw up close, no thanks. It was fine to volunteer, but and then in high school and in college, I also worked in a law firm. My dad was a lawyer. And through that experience, I learned I don't want to be a lawyer. That's great information to learn. So think about that in terms of classes and extracurricular opportunities and internships, that they are ways to learn what you do want to do, but also ways to learn what you don't want to do. And don't discount the learning that comes from realizing, I don't want to do more of that. That's good to learn because you're narrowing down the things that you might want to do. And because the universe of possible things to do is very large, it's great to narrow things down. But yeah, I would say if you're doing one program, a major or a concentration, and you're fulfilling core requirements, there's still space to take fun classes along the way. But if you're doing 2 programs, there might not be much space to just take the occasional fun class that's totally random. So that's an argument for doing 1 program instead of 2. It also partly depends on how many core requirements you have to fulfill. A lot of things there's no escaping from, like university writing. There's no test to get out of it. Everybody has to do it. But for instance, the foreign language requirement, many of you, if you know another language well enough, you probably don't have to do the Columbia College foreign language requirement. And that's going to free up a lot of space in your schedule to take other things. That said, I often have people who've already fulfilled the foreign language requirement and they say, well, I want to learn another language. Fine, great. It's not required at that point for you to do it. But if you're going to study Chinese or Arabic or Russian from scratch, that's going to be a 5-credit class every semester. It's going to take up a lot of space in your schedule. It's probably going to meet 4 times a week, right? So then you're going to shrink your available time to take other classes. Okay, other useful websites. So I think Allison mentioned we will include some of these in a follow-up message to you, but I do want to just highlight a couple that I think are very, very useful. And if you're not familiar with them yet, you should become familiar with them. So one is the directory of classes. You can try this around the world. It's actually interesting. I've tried it in different countries. If you Google the phrase directory of classes and nothing else, see what comes up. It's probably Columbia. And that's the directory of classes. It's kind of old school. It has kind of a 1990s feel to that website, but it tells you what's available and when. And learning how to read it is important. If you ever see a day and time for a class and it says TR, that means it meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The R stands for Thursdays. But you'll see most classes are twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. Languages often could be 4 times a week, especially if it's Arabic or Chinese or Russian, Korean, Japanese. Often those are 4 times a week. A lot of classes will also have a discussion section once a week or a recitation section. You'll see those in the directory of classes. But the directory is the best place, in my view, to find out what's offered, when does it meet, who's the professor, is the class open, is it full? A lot of you will start to notice a lot of classes have lots of people in them already, and you'll wonder, how is that? Why is that? Well, continuing students signed up for classes last April, so that's why things are full. But I will tell you, first years eventually get in the classes they're trying to take. There's going to be stress involved when you first register, and you're going to think nothing is open. Well, you're probably taking at least 2 core classes in your fall and spring semesters anyway. If you're in engineering, you're doing chemistry, calculus, and physics each semester, and there will be space in those. So directory is one. I know we're almost out of time here, so let me quickly say the rest of them. Virgil, which is a website through the registrar's office, it's virgil.registrar.columbia.edu. I find Virgil less useful for finding out days and times of classes. I use the directory for that. But I find Virgil good for faculty evaluations. If you want to read what other people who've taken that class or that professor have said, you can access those. You need to log in with your Union password to be able to see it, but you can often find course evaluations on Virgil. And there's another place, if you haven't heard of it, called culpa.info, which is an informal, unofficial website that Columbia students often write reviews of professors on. I just say the caveat there is keep in mind that people writing those, they tend to either love you or hate you. So the reviews are pretty polarizing. So just keep that in mind. You know, if somebody thought, yeah, the class was okay, they're probably not motivated to write a review. So what you'll find is usually very positive or very negative things. And just be a skeptic. You know, don't believe everything you read about whether a professor is the most amazing or the most terrible ever. Based on what you see on Culpa. But look for trends. You know, if everybody is consistently saying this professor is super difficult and not accommodating and has never smiled in his or her life, you know, it might be true. I don't know. Okay, 2 other websites. So both schools have bulletins, the Columbia College Bulletin and the Engineering Bulletin, and these are online. And the bulletins are very useful for knowing the degree requirements. What is actually required to graduate from your school? Now, your academic advisors should also know the degree requirements and will remind you of them. But ultimately, it is your job to know them and to be paying attention to them and to be fulfilling them so that you graduate on time. And the bulletin is the final word on what's required to graduate. And you should become familiar with them. The engineering bulletin historically is still in print as a physical book. And we'll probably have them and be able to give them out to you when we meet with you in the fall. The college switched to an online only bulletin 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it's only online. And the last website I would mention is Courseworks. And I've said it earlier when I was talking about professors, but Courseworks is a website. It's also sometimes called Canvas that you can log into and see stuff for each of your classes. But the degree to which a professor makes use of Courseworks is highly variable. Some professors use it extensively, and that's where they expect you to submit all of your work, and that's where you can download readings, and that's where you can see your grades. Other professors don't use it that much. I use it to have you submit essays for you writing, and I use it as a place to store readings that you can download. Although, to be honest, I often email the readings or I print them out and give them to you in class. So I'm kind of in the middle of how much I use Courseworks. I don't use it to put people's grades up, but some professors, that's where they put all the grades, and that's the only place you'll really know what grades you're getting. And so you should become familiar with Courseworks over time, and just be prepared for some professors to rely on it heavily and others to not use it much at all. Courseworks has built-in features like forums or discussions that some professors use and others don't. So I think that's everything I want to cover. I don't know, Allison, if there's any last minute questions you want to bring up.
Actually, there was. Someone had asked earlier about transferring between CC and Cs, and more specifically, if they realize that the major that they wanted is better represented in the other school, how would that work?
Yeah, okay. So first thing I would say to anyone interested in switching schools is give the school to which you were admitted and also the school to which you applied a chance. So you're going to have to be in that school for the first year anyway. That's the school to which you applied. That's the school to which you were accepted. So your first year, you're going to be in that school. The transfer process, usually it goes live, the application goes live in December, and it's due by March 1st. And then you'll find out by mid-April if you get accepted to the school you want to switch to. This is to go from Columbia College to engineering or to go in the opposite direction. I will say in most years, we do let most people switch, but we do expect you to make a good faith effort to do the curriculum of the school to which you were admitted. So if you're in the college and you want to go to engineering, you need to do Lit Hum. And that's because you need to stay on track for the school in which you're currently studying, in case you aren't accepted as an internal transfer, or in case you do get accepted, but you decide to stay in your original school. We have people for whom that's the case as well. So I would say if you're in the college and you're thinking you want to go to engineering, it is absolutely essential to give yourself the best chance that you take chemistry, physics, and calculus in your first year in the college. Physics is more important than chemistry in that you have to do a year of physics. So you got to do it in the fall and the spring. Chemistry, depending on your major in the engineering school, you might only need one semester of it. So you could wait until the spring possibly to do that. But you should absolutely be doing chemistry, calculus, and physics if you want to switch to engineering. And that's partly to show the admissions office that you can handle the work that's expected of you if you're going to go to the engineering school. You know, if you don't take any chemistry, calculus, and physics, and all you do is humanities stuff in the college, how are we going to have confidence that you can do the courses that are expected of you? Plus, to be honest, you're going to be behind. If you haven't done chemistry and calculus and physics in your first year, you're going to be behind going to the engineering school. Now, that said, if you want to go in the opposite direction, you're in engineering and you want to go to the college, you should try and take some stuff that has humanities in it. I mean, you writing, you're going to have to take, but it's not a bad idea if your idea is, I want to be a psychology major in the college, but you're in the engineering school right now. Take a psych class or two, right? Take something that you're gonna, one, be able to get a recommendation from the professor for, hopefully, and two, be able to show the admissions office, you know, I've explored this subject, I'm interested in it. I know I am because I've taken a class in it and I did well in that class, right? So you will need two recommendations to do an internal transfer, one from your academic advisor in my office and one from one of your professors, probably from the fall semester. So you should be strategically thinking about that already, you know, which professor might I ask for a letter of recommendation? To be honest, it's often going to be a professor in a smaller class. It's kind of hard to get a strong letter of recommendation from someone in a 150 or 200 person class. So you writing is often a professor you might ask for that kind of letter. But if it is going to be a chem, calc, or physics professor, or I said, yeah, chem, calc, or physics, you know, go to office hours, get to know the person more so that they know who they're writing this letter for. And it's not just, you know, one out of 150 people on their roster. Okay, any final questions, Allison? So yeah, we can conclude the recording at this point and then switch to live Q&A for a couple minutes if people want to stick around and you still have more questions. That's fine with me.
Okay, and just to finish up the recording, first, thank you so much, Justin, for all of your information. And certainly, if when we stop the recording, if you have places to be and things to do, feel free to go ahead and do that. This session has been recorded and will be uploaded onto the Countdown to Columbia website, as well as the International at Columbia YouTube channel, which is in the works. And if you need to get in touch with Justin Snyder, you can do that at csa@columbia.edu. But I do highly recommend that you wait a few days because you will be assigned to your academic advisor very soon. And you can also get in touch with them directly. Justin, anything else you'd want to add for folks who are watching the recording later?
No, I think that's everything.
All righty. Okay.